Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the conservative atheist podcast that's not afraid to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Every week, your hosts, Cephas and Mike, will take on the latest religious and political news and examine the world around us from a distinctly conservative and skeptical perspective. Join us now for this episode of the Bitchspot Report. Welcome once again, my friends, to the show that never ends. Yes, it's episode 34 of the Bitchspot Report podcast, that crazy place where we talk about news and politics and pretty much anything else we want, all from a distinctly conservative perspective. As always, I'm your host, Cephas, and with me is Mike. Let's get this party started and kick off another episode of the Bitchspot Report. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Work's been nuts as usual. I don't know. It's got me so frazzled. I've got my show ready to go for Friday. I got everything recorded. I even discovered how nice it is to write a script. Normally I just put, notes, like bullet points, and then I just kind of talk about those bullet points. But I actually sat down and I've been using that Dragon voice recognition stuff.
Yeah.
I've been using that, and I just was using that, and I created scripts, and I can edit out, and then I record it. And you know what? My hour, normally I would talk an hour, I cut out about a half hour because it's all the ums and the ahs and the silences and stuff like that. But now that I had a script, and it was basically me going through my spiel, a half hour, everything was together, maybe a few little, where I coughed or something like that had come out, I was done. It's like, it really worked nice. So I'm probably going to be doing that more, maybe help my show a little bit better. But the thing is, I've been coming home from work. I've been just so dead that I haven't put the pieces together to build the show so I can put it out Friday. So it's like, I went through all that effort and did nothing for the past 2 days.
Oh yeah, I know how that goes. So what do you think of Dragon? See, I bought it a long time ago, and I've never installed it. It's just been sitting there.
I'm digging it. The version 10 sucks. But then again, I've been running it on suck equipment. And I've put it on my good machine, and I got 12.5 premium. Because it also, I can also take a WAV file that I recorded and try and do a transcript from that. That doesn't work too good, but actually doing just straight into like Word or something like that, it works great.
Yeah, because I'm looking and I've got version 12.0 premium, so I don't know. Maybe I'll try it. I haven't honestly given that a shot, but like I said, I've always done scripts because if I just write down something that I want to talk about without anybody to play off of, I would just sit there and go, I don't know what I'm saying. What am I supposed to say? I don't know. So when I'm doing the show by myself, or if I'm doing like one of the Bitchspot quickies or, anything like that, I will go through and I will script it down to the word and just say, this is exactly what I want to say, and here's how I want to say it, and I'll just read it and edit out any mistakes I make, and that's what you get.
Exactly. I'm kind of digging it. It's just that for me to sit down at a keyboard, typing everything out, if I can talk it out, kind of like what's in my head, it comes out better, it seems like, than what ends up on the keyboard. Because I'll start typing away, and then it's like, what the fuck did I just write? Type of thing. So I'm kind of digging it. I've used I think it was version 10. It seemed like there was I had this issue with the profiles disappearing, or it wouldn't recognize. But then again, I'm plugging different mics in and out, so that may be part of the problem. You need to set up a profile for each thing you're doing. If you're using a USB mic, if you're using the built-in microphone, or you just use a regular microphone plugged into the computer. So you kind of have to set up profiles. But once that's done, 12 really worked great. Worked a lot better than 10 for me.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a shot. I've been doing a lot of writing lately, and I'm like a natural writer anyway, so I'm used to just sitting down and just, vomiting from the fingers and getting stuff done.
Yeah. I've never been too good. It's that mechanical from the brain to my hand. I think that I must have some issue with that. But if I can take what's just right from my head and just start talking, it seems to come out a whole lot better.
Well, it usually comes out more naturally that way. It seems to, but like I end up writing an absurd amount. I've calculated once that, between everything that I write, I put out probably about 100,000 words a month, which is kind of silly. I mean, seriously, on my other blog where I do my weekly TV reviews, I usually do about 1,000 words per review. And this week it came out to nearly 12,000 words. It's like, wow. Oh my God. And it's going to get worse. So, I do that every single week. So that's 4,800 words, a week, or 48,000 words a week just doing that. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. Cause I'm always looking for just easier ways I can do my writing, and cause I'm trying a few other projects. So it's like, cause actually I've wrote my next show. I've actually got 2 other shows already about half written. So it's like, I mean, I'm moving a lot faster than I normally would, which is way cool. If I can get to Cephas level writing, that'd be way cool.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of practice.
Yes.
And it's not only just being able to put it out, it's being able to do it efficiently and putting it out quickly. I can sit down for an hour and drop, 2,000 to 3,000 words easily, and that's finished words, not just crap on a page.
Right.
But that's taken, 40 some odd years to master, and I'm always getting better. But yeah, the more you do something, the faster and easier it gets. It's like editing this show. It used to take me 5 or 6 hours to produce an hour and a half worth of content. And it used to take me all the way up until maybe 7 or 8 o'clock at night on Thursday to edit this show out. Now, I produce the entire show by about, it takes me maybe 2.5 hours for an hour and a half show. And some of that is going out looking for content and stuff. And it's actually getting really, really, really easy. So it's not the chore that it used to be.
Right. Yeah, I know that, like with editing, once I figured out a few tricks and stuff like that, I've set up a template. I usually do two sections. One is like a main story, and then the second's like announcements and stuff like that. I just record those, insert them in the template, add a couple sound bites, do whatever overall editing, like equalize it, or actually I haven't had to equalize in a long time, but then create a WAV file, use Levelator to level out all the volume, and then bring it back in, convert it to MP3, put it on the website, and by having that template, it's like, takes about 90% of the battle right there, and then it's cut and paste to put a show together.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of people ask me how we do this show, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there's a lot of podcasts out there that have really, really horrible sound quality, and apparently they do no editing or anything like that, and I don't really want to listen to a show like that, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
But I've had a lot of people ask me, and I think what I'm going to do is up on the Bitchspot report site, I'm going to probably just detail out what software we use and how we actually do this and all the rest of that, and what filters we use and all the rest of that. Because if we can help somebody else out to produce a better quality show, hey, I'm all for that.
Yeah. Would it be an idea to do a little side project, just like a discussion on how to put together a podcast? Do you think?
Well, there's a lot of places you can go and do that.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to do it specifically for our show so that cause we do ours 100% on the cheap. It costs us nothing to do our show. It's all time. It's not, we're not going out and buying $1,000 microphones and $1,000 software to do it all and all that stuff. Everything is free. Everything is easy. And, it produces a pretty decent show, I think. I look at how it starts out and then, I kind of go through the whole thing and it's like, wow, there's a lot of work and a lot of cutting and a lot of editing and all this stuff. And then I listen to it and it's like, wow, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
That comes out amazingly well. So maybe we can help some people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm kind of wondering, and this has been bugging me, and Yeah, I'm an old guy. I'm 51. I must be getting old because, a lot of things about just driving in traffic is starting to piss me off. And last week I was, driving to Detroit. It's late. I had a late start and, I come up, I'm driving along, no traffic. All of a sudden everything stopped. Okay. I see, a bunch of semis. I see some blue flashing lights. I'm assuming, okay, there was an accident. And in Michigan, they seem to like to close everything off when they do anything with an accident. So they'll shut down everything. And I'm sitting there and I'm not in a big hurry to get, cause it was late. I didn't have to be at work. I just had to get to the hotel. So I'm kind of kicking back. I'm listening to, what was I listening to? I think it was Dawkins, The Selfish Gene. So I'm kind of, okay, I got some cool stuff on I've got my book going and traffic isn't moving at all. So I put it in park and I'm kind of waiting. I'm in a big hurry and every so often the trucks will move about a foot and then stop. Everything's good. So, probably about after a half hour or so, things started moving, but again, real slow. So I'm moving along. And then all of a sudden, the one semi that was in front of me pulls into the right lane and there's nothing in front of these trucks. Nothing. There's for miles, there were no cars in front of them. These motherfuckers created a roadblock, backing up traffic. And I don't know, it had to have been a mile or two of traffic back up. And I'm like, what the fuck did you just do? It's like, was there some kind of protest? I'm trying to understand the logic of fucking up traffic like that on an interstate. And it seems to be the truckers that seem to like to do this. I've seen it once before where they were doing this roadblock thing when coming up on a construction zone. How cars, I'm assuming it's because cars are blowing past them and, they're slowing down. So they pull into the far right lane where they're not supposed to be and bring everything to a grinding halt. And I've seen that and they just did this here and I'm like, what purpose does that serve? I love a trucker. If there's truckers listening to this, explain to me the logic behind that. That's all I want to know.
Yeah, if you have a cause, and we know that there was some kind of a trucker thing in Washington, D.C., and it could have been related to that, I don't know. But let's be really honest, all right? If you want to get people to sign on to your cause, the last thing you should do is piss people off. That's stupid.
Yeah. I've heard these guys, they bitch and moan. And maybe quite honest, with all due respect, I think they have a beef that, I see the diesel prices are like $1 more than gasoline. These guys are paying a fortune in fuel to move this stuff. But you know what? If you're sitting there stopping traffic, you're burning up that diesel fuel that you're bitching about, type of thing. It's just there just doesn't seem to be any logic to it. That's the thing with me. And for some reason, it makes sense to them. And I'd like to know what that sense is because, you're going to tie up traffic because you're pissed off. I don't know if it had to do with the government shutdown, if it was something about some law where they're raising their license plate fees. These guys spend a lot of money on that kind of stuff, but you know what? I will not give a shit if you're going to pull this kind of crap off, type of thing.
Yeah, it's one thing. If you want to get my sympathy for your cause, do not screw up my life with your stupidity. That's just dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that kind of stuff. And I agree with you. I've been behind things like that before where they've just stopped. They said, we're going to stop. We're going to completely block traffic. The police have been there. These people have just said, we're not getting out of our damn cars or our trucks or whatever. We're just going to sit here for as long as we can. We got our stuff shut off and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that they should just bring up heavy equipment, push the damn trucks off the side of the freeway, roll them, and then, with the guys in them if they refuse to get out. It's like, dude, there's a consequence to your actions. Don't be stupid.
Yeah, yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was nothing more than these guys they seem to get ticked off it. And maybe rightly so. I've seen people and honestly hate having to, like you have to get in front of a semi, because your exit's coming up. And of course people aren't moving right or whatever. And you see an opening so you can just squeeze in there so you can get your exit. Truckers hate that because you just took away their stop, because those semis cannot stop. And I know that part, So I'm very leery about getting in front of a semi like that. I mean, I'd like to give them a little extra room and turn signals and all that kind of stuff, so they know that, hey, this is what I'm doing, be ready. I'm trying to be as courteous to them. I would like to have them courteous back to me. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but a lot of them aren't, because they figure they got the big truck and everybody's afraid of them.
They have a big truck, they pay more taxes, whatever the crap argument. I mean, I pay taxes, road taxes. You pay road taxes. These guys, they pay road taxes when they buy gas, when they buy tires. Just the same as everyone else on that road. You don't have any special rights to drive like an apple.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of them do, and a lot of people do, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
People just need to think about what they do before they do it. Think about the consequences of what they do, and I think that's the problem, is most people never even consider consequences. They think they can just get away with anything they want.
Right. It's fun. It's interesting. And just driving the roads. I actually would rather drive in Southern California than in Michigan. New York I don't like. Detroit I don't like. Chicago I guess maybe because I'm more used to it, but definitely not Detroit. These truckers, everybody, they don't understand what an acceleration lane is. Traffic's moving 60 miles, 70 miles an hour. You're doing 30 trying to get onto the interstate. You're lucky you're still alive, motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's that kind of crap. And the semis, I guess they allowed to be overloaded. I don't know. So I see these big, I call them caterpillars. They're like, these are semis with, looks like almost 20, 30 wheels on their trailers. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And again, they're getting on the interstate doing 20 miles an hour on the acceleration ramp. And it's like, dude, you're a hazard. I mean, if I was a cop, I'd have the guy pulled over and writing him up as a road hazard because, or driving unsafe because you're not moving at traffic speed. I don't know if you can do that. And also cops never pull anyone over for doing under the speed limit. They do it over the speed limit. You don't have to slow down 10 miles or 15 miles an hour under the speed limit when you pass a cop. That's the other thing that seems to be quite common out here. I don't know how common that is in California or elsewhere.
Nobody cares. Because everybody's doing at least 20 miles over the speed limit. Nobody cares.
Right. I mean, I did get a ticket in California, so I don't know how it works out there. But it's kind of cool. They don't take your license. I mean, they just, here's a ticket, pay it, and everything's good. In Illinois, they'll take your driver's license until you pay it.
Yeah, well, they can't really get away with that because it takes so damn long to get a court date out here. I mean, it's like, well, let's see. You want to go see the judge? It'll be 9 months. You can't take their license for 9 months because the courts are so backed up.
That explains it. That's cool.
All right. Well, anyway, we should probably get to the news, and we're going to be talking about traffic safety all day.
Yes.
And now the news.
Today I want to talk about something, though, that is serious. Today I want to talk about a war that the mainstream media is ignoring. From Boston to Zanzibar, there's a worldwide war on Christianity. Christians are being attacked around the world, but you won't hear much about it on the evening news because the answer's not convenient. It doesn't fit the narrative we have been told about radical Islam. The president tries to gloss over who's attacking and killing Christians. The media describes the killings as sectarian. But the truth is, a worldwide war on Christians is being waged by a fanatical element of Islam. Ever since 9/11, commentators have tried to avoid pointing fingers at Islam, which is somewhat fair. It is fair to point out that most Muslims are not committed to violence against Christians, but it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is, and we shouldn't let political correctness stand in the way of this truth, the whole truth is that there is a minority of Muslims who condone killing of Christians, but unfortunately, that minority numbers in the tens of millions.
From Boston to Zanzibar, there's a worldwide war on Christianity, says Rand Paul, son of insane libertarian ex-congressman Ron Paul. Almost as if we lived in the Middle Ages. He asserts that there's an undeclared war between Christianity and Islam, and it's going to require Islam to police itself. However, is this really the case, or is there just a clash between two contradictory religious machines? I don't think there's a war. I mean, any more than there has been for the past 1,000 years.
I would agree with that. Rand Paul, I have no respect for the guy. I don't even have respect for Ron Paul, or very little. At least Senior he kind of gets it, but Rand Paul he's just a basic nutcase. Again, I think there's this threatened Christian stuff, because if I notice from the article, it's like, all these millions and millions of Muslims in the world, and, the Christians are being less and less, and it's like, so,
you say that like it's a bad thing.
Right. And I'm hard pressed to believe that he's using real numbers. I mean, this guy I don't think ever has. I don't even think he knows how to count. I just have absolutely no respect for the man.
Well, I don't either. I mean, I don't have him. He and his father are both fundamentalist wingnut Christian idiots.
Yeah.
Ron Paul's a creationist. Fuck you, dude, and, fuck your stupid son. But he says a lot of really stupid stuff. Like he says the U.S. is a Christian nation. Well, no, it's not. It has never been a Christian nation. It will never be a Christian nation. This is a secular nation. Having a majority Christian population doesn't make it a Christian nation any more than having a majority white population makes it a white nation. That's not the way shit works, dumb fuck.
Right.
And then he goes, well, the Muslims hate Christians. Well, of course the Muslims hate Christians. The Christians hate the Muslims, and both of them hate the Hindus and everybody else. Religion, no matter what his PR campaign says, it's all about hate. All of them hate everybody.
Yes.
Every religious group out there wants to wipe out every other religious group. That's the whole point of fucking religion.
Yeah.
What are you, stupid?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I don't think nobody in the Republican Party seems to be in touch. Certainly Rand Paul is played to the lowest denominator. I know with Ron Paul, he goes on the Alex Jones show all the time. It's usually talking about the Federal Reserve and all that kind of crap. And, it's like, okay, you're trying to be sensible, but you know what? You're hanging out with the wingnuts. I mean, the real wingnuts. And Rand Paul, I don't know if he's ever been. I know Ron Paul's been on there. Rand, I don't think he's been on, but Alex Jones kind of promotes, his efforts type of thing. So that, we're not even talking like the normal crazy, but we're talking like the ultra crazies are backing this guy, and they buy right into it. And again, the Republicans, I know we talk conservatives, and a lot of times people confuse Republican and conservative. These guys are not conservative. They're right-wing nut jobs. I mean, I'm just seeing, was it Bachmann just brought up to impeach Obama over the government shutdown. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, what are you people thinking? And it's the same stuff. This guy is, he's playing to his crowd that anything Muslim, and I'm sure, somewhere buried in that subtext is that the Muslim hates us and that the Muslims hate us. And remember, Obama is a Muslim. That's what he's playing. It's part of what he's playing to. So he's going to say that all day long and he won't think twice.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that people like Alex Jones and a lot of the conspiracy theorists, they support Ron Paul and Rand Paul because they're anti-government people, and these people think the government is out to abduct us and steal our brains and
infect us with AIDS and do all the chemtrails.
But you have to remember the government is controlled by aliens and.
Right.
And, so it all kind of hangs together. I'm not at all surprised that the whack jobs are out there supporting the political whack jobs.
Yeah.
And they're all sitting around going, oh, well, Christianity isn't out to kill the Muslims. Well, yeah, but Christianity's only that way because it's been neutered by secular society. They've been slapped down and told to knock it off and grow the fuck up. Islam hasn't quite got that yet. It has in the U.S. You don't have an awful lot of crazies in the U.S. that are out there trying to kill women and kill girls for going to school and all this other crap. It's only in these backwoods, third-rate countries where you have this crap going on. So, yeah, of course. But you have the same thing with Christianity in Africa. where they're killing witches and,
Yeah.
and all this other nonsense.
Yep. Not much difference. I mean, you got the Buddhists attacking the Muslims in Thailand and Indonesia. It's like we got to hate something. I hate to bring up Hitler, but Hitler created the Jews being the problem. So
he didn't create it. But, that goes all the way back to Martin Luther. Martin Luther, the great Christian reformer, was a fucking anti-Semite.
True. I'm just using Hitler as he built his political base off of that, hating the religion. Same stuff here. These guys are trying to say, hey, we're supposed to hate Muslims. I don't hate individuals. I mean, I hate the think that goes behind Islam and Christian. I mean, it has no meaning in today's society. All these guys are doing is using, again, it's that Hitler tactic. The Muslims are doing this to you. We're not doing us government. We're not the ones doing the problems here. It's the Muslims that are causing you all your pain and suffering. It's that kind of thing. It's not that Republicans have fucked up the government and we've shut it down. It's not our fault because it's the Muslims' fault for, whatever, you got Obama there who's a Muslim who shut our government down. It's not us that wouldn't vote for it. It's him that wouldn't back down. It's like, I don't, again, this is more that I don't understand the logic.
Well, there is no logic, but you got to remember, these are not conservatives. These people are not remotely conservative. These are neocons. They have nothing to do with conservatism. They're a hell of a lot closer to liberals than they are to fucking conservatives. These people haven't got a clue about fiscal conservancy. Guys, that means, spending only within your limits. It means not spending more than you actually have. It means not borrowing fucking money from China. The Republicans aren't doing that. They're borrowing just as much money as the Democrats are. That's not a conservative, dumb fuck. It ain't that. It's not how it works. A basis of conservatism is keeping the government the fuck out of people's lives. That's not the Republicans. These are the people who want to control gay marriage. They want to make everybody religious. They want to push their fucking religious agenda. That's not conservative. These people are just they're liberals with a different agenda.
Yes. Definitely.
We could go into the whole reason why, but people need to figure out that these are not fucking conservatives. There is no conservative party in America today. There isn't one at all. Which is why the country is so fucked up.
Yes. I mean, I love how, well, like I said, we can go on and on about this. I mean, but definitely Rand Paul. Why does anybody listen to him? Well, apparently people in Kentucky listened to him and voted for him, and this is what you get, I mean, Michelle Bachmann, someone should kick her out of office, impeach her, impeach all these idiots.
Yeah, well, they should throw the entire government out of office and start over, but they won't.
No. That's easy.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and get on to your next story.
I love this story. This is a wonderful story. It's from the HuffPost Religion. Onion beats AP by months on Vatican damage control of Pope Francis. To me, this was just so hilarious that the Onion making a joke. This is satire, and about the Pope, and he's kind of his crazy talk. We've talked about him so many times, and the Onion did an article about that. Now the AP is finally reporting on it. I'd be very embarrassed to be someone at the AP being scooped by the Onion.
But they weren't scooped. It's not that hard to predict the stupidity of religion. It's a constant.
I know.
They just predicted something and holy crap, they were right.
Yep. Yeah, I mean. Yeah.
But didn't we predict the same thing?
We
probably did it before the Onion did. I could go back and look at the dates, but I'm sure, the Onion only did it back in June. I'm sure we've been talking about how crazy the Pope is and how the Vatican's gonna have to apologize for all the shit that he's saying and try to spin it a different way. I'm sure we've been doing that longer than June.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it sounds like we would have been, because anything the Pope, especially when it hits the news like it has, with all the stories that we have done, we probably beat them to it, but, like I said, I thought it was just funny that the mainstream never caught on until, after the Onion did it. And,
Well, the mainstream doesn't want to report on things like that. They don't want to make the Catholics look bad. They can't offend their readership. That's the whole thing. They can't report on, that's the same reason why you don't see them doing huge articles on like the Catholic sex scandals until it becomes ridiculously obvious to everybody and they have to say something. But most of the time, they don't go out there and report on religious stupidity because they rely on religious dollars.
True. I would agree with that. It just, it would seem to me though, now to think about it, yeah, you're right. I mean, just the newspapers, the TV, I mean, they're dependent on people watching to watch the ads so they can get they get their ratings to get the money in. So yeah, I mean, they're going to ignore, Chicago is, I think still pretty heavily Catholic. I mean, we have a large Polish population. So I think they're still heavily Catholic. So they're not going to offend the Polish. They're not going to offend the Catholics. I do notice that there's always a lot of articles with, what's the cardinal there now?
Which one? Dolan, Mahoney, well, ex-Cardinal Mahoney. Which criminal cardinal do you want to talk about?
Bernardine was I think he just passed away. I don't know who's in charge now. And we're talking Chicago. And every so often he pops up on as, when they're doing something, because there's this Father Flagger. I don't know if you're familiar with him or heard of him. He does a lot of work with, inner city kids, done a lot of great work. But he's come under fire on occasions. He was kind of there was a push to, remove, drug paraphernalia from, head shops and, all that stuff that went with it. And, he kind of spearheaded outlawing that here in Illinois. And Flagger caught a lot of flack for that, and the Bernardine kind of backed him up. Hey, our inner cities, they're going into these shops. I mean, I loved going into those places. You get the incense, you get all the drug. I wasn't into, drugs at the time, so it was like, but it was kind of cool. Oh, what's that for? Oh, okay, that's how that's your roach clip. That's your, the stuff. Cause it was also the record store, so that's where I got all my, bought all my records and stuff. So, it was kind of cool walking by there and seeing all the stuff, but now that's all illegal under Flagger. He caught a lot of flack for it, but it's those kind of stories come up that, the good that the church is doing. And I don't know how many, I think there's only been a couple stories that had come up. There was one in Joliet in my town. It was I'm trying to remember the priest. Name's escaping me, but, I think we've had maybe one or two, if it's what we think it is. I mean, one or two that makes it to the news. There's probably 20 or 40 right behind it that hasn't been talked about. So you're only going to get the warm and fuzzy stories. You're not going to get the ugly stories unless it's in Milwaukee.
Yeah, but that's really where I think the entire mainstream media has completely fallen apart. And when I was growing up, that wasn't the case. They reported on the news and that was it. But now it's either gotten sensationalistic, if it bleeds, it leads, or it's gotten, we can't offend anybody, so we're only going to tell the news that appeals to our demographic, the Fox News kind of thing.
Right.
And that's because news has become so completely commercialized. They're not interested in actually informing the public. The news broadcasts are not about informing the public. They're about making money. And I really think that we need to rethink the FCC licenses and say every single broadcast agency out there that has any kind of FCC license, you are required as a requirement of your license to produce X amount of, public programming that you cannot show an ad during. You cannot have a commercial. This is, you need to fund this. This comes out of your bottom line. And if you don't like that, give up your fucking license. Let somebody else do it.
I would like to see something like that. I mean, I know there are some requirements for public broadcasting, but you know what? They're not any set times. I mean, that's why you see Saturday mornings. Sundays are always these, Sunday mornings to noon. You'll see these, the local, the public interest type stories, This Week in News, all those news programs. I would love to see something where news in itself, you have to have an hour of just news. Or something, and not just community related, but actually you pay for it out of your own pocket. And I mean, I would have no problem with some type of subsidy to do that, but it's like, I just want real news. I don't want to see, what Paris Hilton wasn't wearing today, type of stories, or, what's happening in Hollywood. Hollywood, fuck you people.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to know, the important things that are happening in town, if there's, I don't know. I mean, maybe, story, cause you're going to get the fire stories, the police stories, the shootings and stuff like that. But I don't want to start, but I have no problem with a sports section, a weather section. But, you start getting into the Hollywood reports and I don't mind the feel good, cause they always, in Chicago, I think it's pretty common across the country. It's like toward the end, I'll put the cute dog story in there and the stuff like that. But, the news, it's like, someone gets shot, building burns down, what's happening in the war in Afghanistan, what's happening in Washington. You might get some, a business report, and it's usually those businesses in town, in Chicago, Boeing, United, you'll hear about United's doing this and Boeing's doing that type of stories. So, it's like, why not give I grew up, when I was a kid, I would actually, when I was at my grandparents' place, I'd watch the Vietnam War on NBC Nightly News with, Chet Huntley and, what's the guy? Huntley and Brinkley.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've watched Walter Cronkite, talk about, the moon, I'd watched them, the Apollo missions. I think I watched all of them, and you had Walter Cronkite, some of the other guys on, CBS. There was a couple other guys that, and all of them, Chris Bergman, doing the, I think that was ABC for the moon, Apollo missions. And they told you everything you needed to know about, if you were interested in the Apollo missions, they told you everything. It wasn't this, see this is a lunar module. They use this to land on the moon. No duh. How does it work? What's the, show us how this thing works. How do they control it? How do they get in and out? That's what I want to get out of my news. I don't want to see the pretty thing on top of the rocket. That's called a command module. That's where all the astronauts sit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They dumb everything down.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's all done for ratings, so they don't really give a crap what they say. They're going to say things that are going to get people watching. And I think that's really where the mainstream media has gone through the floor. Because now you can get online and you can get any kind of news you want in seconds. You don't have to wait for the 11 o'clock news. You don't have to wait for the newspaper the next day. That's why all these things are going away.
Yeah. Definitely. If I want to know what's going on in China, I can go to a site in China. It's like that's the cool part about the internet. I think someone's going to have to wake up, stop, either give us a news program or stop calling what you're giving us the news. Cause then you've got, in getting back to our story here, cause when the satire sites can get in front of the real sites, that tells you there is definitely something wrong with the regular news sites,
Yeah, but The Onion wasn't telling an actual news story at the time that they did it. They were predicting, they were saying, well, this could happen out of what we're seeing, and they just accurately predicted it.
Yeah. I'm not going that far as saying that I'm just saying that they hit the nail on the head in that story. It was granted, anything Onion is satire, and it was probably jokingly, good satire is always, it probably really did analyze and say, well, what am I seeing here? Let's make up a story about it, type of thing. They saw it when they put their story together. Why didn't AP see that? And at least put a reporter on it? To me, anything satire or parodies, Weird Al Yankovic. I know a lot of people may not like him and, the parodies he does, but he's probably better because he listens to the song. He analyzes the song and fits things nicely together. I mean, if you go to those goofballs, Bob and Tom, they do their parodies. It's like, they're horrible. To me, they're horrible because it's like they're just stringing words together. Weird Al actually looked at the song and kind of kept the feel of the song together, but putting his lyrics together, if that makes any sense to you or the listeners. Because, I mean, that's why, I think he was more popular and had a very excellent career because he looks at the song and how do you get Amish Paradise out of Gangster Paradise? He was able to pull that together and make this really cool song. A lot of people just can't seem to do that. I mean, I'm gonna, like I said, so on that line, when the Onion looked at what the Pope was doing, and that's what I think I like about the Onion. I think they really do analyze what they're about ready to write about or whether they're about ready to satire or parody. And I'm surprised they don't get it right more often.
Oh, you never know. They probably do. Because that's the thing is that the Onion isn't just writing a satire. They're looking at it and saying, well, what conclusions can we reasonably draw from this? And then they're writing about the conclusions that they draw. And a lot of the time, they're actually right about the conclusions that they draw.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on.
Yes.
A panel of Egyptian judges has recommended the dissolution of the Muslim Brotherhood's political party amid a widening crackdown on the group. The recommendations will be delivered to a Cairo court reviewing a case demanding the party's dissolution on October the 19th. The decades-old organization formed a political party in 2011 after the ouster of President Hosni Mubarak. The group was the main backer of Egypt's first democratically elected leader, Mohamed Morsi. Following his ouster in July, authorities have arrested the group's leaders and cracked down on its protests. Meanwhile, a group of pro-Morsi protesters staged a rally in northern city of Alexandria to show their support for the ousted president. On Sunday, dozens of people were killed following clashes between security forces and Morsi supporters in the capital, Cairo.
An Egyptian court recently issued a ruling forcibly dissolving the Muslim Brotherhood and confiscating their assets, less than 3 months after the ouster of President Mohamed Morsi, who put the fledgling Egyptian government into bed with Muslim extremism. The leftist party in Egypt has accused the Brotherhood of terrorism and using religion as a weapon, which surely they do. But now what? Can Egyptians take the first steps into becoming a truly secular government in the hyper-religious Middle East, or will they just trade one religious master for another? Yeah, this is what happens when you let your religion into government,
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say what can go on in Egypt. I mean, in anything Middle East. I get kind of this impression that it's weird politics there, and it doesn't help that the Americans are, we invaded and we're threatening to invade and all that kind of stuff, and the politics there are so messy anyhow. I mean, I don't know what could happen. Trade one for the other type of deal. To be honest, I don't even know what to think. Trading one crazy for another crazy. Do they go back into a dictatorship? I mean, we really don't know what's going to happen, and the switches may lead to more assassinations. I mean, Sadat started trying to be more friendly toward Israel, and look what it got him, and all this stuff. Hopefully the Americans are not meddling around with Egyptian politics.
Oh, we always are. Come on.
I don't know. I don't have any evidence, but it's like I wouldn't be surprised that they're backing some nutcase over there.
Yeah, we've got our fingers in everybody's pie.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm pretty sure it is, but I just don't know where it's going to come from. It's one of those things, you don't know who the hell we're backing over there.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to see how things go over there, but I really think that they need like a constitution that declares Egypt to be politically secular and denying any religious group any political power whatsoever. But of course that's never going to happen because they're in the middle of a fucking religious war. The entire Middle East is a giant effing religious war. How in the world do you have a secular government in a region where everybody's a fucking religious fanatic?
Yeah, I just finished reading this. I was there's a lecture on Audible about this is actually going back to the end of the First World War. And when Europe started dividing up everything, they didn't pay any attention to who was who in the region. They actually kind of treated the region as, like second class or even third class humans. And I think there's probably still that we don't treat these people as being intelligent. A lot of the problems we've had, with 9/11, with all this, is that we just don't understand these people, and we try to force our beliefs upon them. They want to be left alone, and I think we should leave them alone. And I think I think it would be a good idea for our government to pull their heads out of their ass and recognize that these are people who can lead themselves. They can. If they want help from the West, help from the United States, we send helpers. We don't send soldiers. Soldiers are not going to fix their problem. It's going to be people who can teach them or guide them and let it be. My basic attitude toward religion is that it's all going to die out anyhow, so let them figure out their problems so that you don't build a reason to be ultra radical. Because if you're not getting leadership from your government or from even people trying to help from the outside, you go to your mullahs and your ayatollahs, and they're going to tell you, oh yeah, just strap a bomb on yourself and walk into that building. That'll solve it. You'll go to heaven and get your X number of virgins, and everything's good. That's not an answer. That's not a way to do things. We need to be out of these countries. No soldiers, no overt advisors, but if they want help, hey, we're here. We'll help you if you need it. Just give us a call. We'll send help.
Yeah, but we don't give a crap about them. That's the thing. We want their oil. We don't give shit one about them. We just have to keep them stable enough in order for us to continue to take all their oil. That's the only reason we give crap one about anybody in the Middle East.
Right.
So it's not about us going in to advise them. It's about us wanting to create stable governments that we can control so that we can continue to get the flow of oil coming out.
Right.
I'm entirely with you that I think we should be the hell out of these countries. We should tell them to just go fuck themselves, and away they go. You stay over on your side. We'll stay over here. Stay the hell out of the West. I don't want these people to be going into Europe or into England or into the U.S. or into anything else and bringing their little fucking mental mind poison with them. I don't want their shit. When they grow up, cool. Until they grow up, screw them.
Yeah. I mean, I think they'd be a lot more stable too if we weren't messing around, because that seems to be what we do. We go in there and we want to put this guy in. Well, he wants to keep the communists out. He wants to do this, but you know what? He's got that, that drug deal, that drug thing going on in that. And it's, we seem to back the wrong people, and all it does is just screw everything up and pisses people off more. If we did leave them alone, I would think they become more stable.
I don't think so. I don't think so. They're going to become more stable when they become more secular. When they can actually set up a government that is not run by the religious flavor of the week.
Right. Well, what I'm thinking in terms of if they can stabilize, because if you got this government, and I'll use Iran under the Shah. I mean, you had this guy who was just, he's an asshole. He stole from the country. Anyone who disagreed got picked up by the secret police and tortured to death. Yeah, that's going to create, fucked up people, and they're going to go and they're going to listen to the religious types, a la, and whatever. And the Muslims are going to say, yeah, revolt, strap bombs to yourself, blow up government buildings. If you had a stable country, there wouldn't be, people like, well, everything's okay. Things are not that bad, and maybe now they can, think, instead of worrying about where the food's coming from or if the secret police are going to bust their doors in, they can be thinking about, well, why is this religion? Why does my wife have to wear a burqa, or why do I have to kill my daughter because this old guy with the white beard tells me that I have to do it because she looked at a boy the wrong way? I'm not thinking along that lines. That, by getting rid of the oppression in these countries and then realizing, hey, discovering some freedoms, and it's like, then they have a chance to think about, well, wait a minute, my thinking's been fucked up. I'm listening to this guy who says I'm supposed to, blow people up. I'm supposed to kill any Westerner. No, I mean, I'm getting money from the West, buying my oil. Instead of us going in there and taking the oil from them, let's buy it from them, pay for it, like what free enterprise is supposed to be, and, if we can get like to that point, then people can start thinking, why am I following this guy? He wants me to blow things up and, throw acid on women's faces for looking at men the wrong way, or, women can't drive. I mean, I don't want to be driving all over the place. Let the wife go out and get the food,
Yeah, but that's not the way it works. Even if you look at like an advanced Muslim country like Saudi Arabia, these people have shitloads of money. The standard of living is very high in Saudi Arabia. These people have a stable government. And they're still the fucktard religious Muslim dumbasses. They still have the same rules. They still live under the same religious oppression. It doesn't improve the religion just because you improve the government. You have to throw the fucking religion out completely and say, this is goddamn stupid, and now we're going to have to go and believe something better. We're going to have to live under a better system. You can't just say, well, the religion will improve itself. You need to have somebody in there to tell these people to grow the fuck up. It's not going to happen otherwise.
Yeah.
Christianity didn't improve itself until secular society came along and said, you guys are done. We're not putting up with your crap anymore. Otherwise, they were just like the damn Muslims. They were killing people. They were torturing people. They were lighting people on fire. They were doing all this other nonsense until society said, we're done. The society under which these Muslims live have to say, we're done. We're not putting up this crap anymore. And I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, yeah, you're probably right on that. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, if you can somehow break the cycle. I mean, I think that's what it has to happen. Somehow the cycle's got to get broken, and the new coming in, the old leaving. Somehow, somewhere in there, to borrow from the Discovery Institute, somehow get a wedge in there to say, hey, religion. Again, break, I guess, the cycle of religions, the cycle of abuse. If you can get in there, break that cycle, then stuff is going to happen. Like you're right. Saudi Arabia is never going to, or doesn't seem like it's ever going to realize that what they're doing is fucked up, and they can't think beyond. It's going to take young people in Saudi Arabia to say, we don't want to do this anymore. We don't want to have our hands cut off, for go to jail for blasphemy, that type of thing. Somehow we got to, there's a cycle that's got to get broke somehow.
Yeah, but even if going back to Egypt, they had the fundamentalist Muslims in charge. And right now they're going through a cycle where they're very anti-Muslim. But the people are not improving to say, wait a minute, religion is what's fucked us up. They're just going, no, it's that religion that fucked us up. So now we're going to go and embrace a different religion. Yeah. They need to get to the point where they just say, the problem is religion. It's not that we've had the wrong religion, it's that we've had any religion. Because religion by itself is bad. And the Middle East is not set up that way, and unfortunately, most of the social systems that are in the Middle East are not only, run by the older men. Well, the older men aren't the younger men who we need to change the system. The younger men have no power. And by the time they ever get any power, they're so indoctrinated into the system, it doesn't matter anymore.
Right. And unfortunately, you are right on that. I mean, like I said, something's got to happen. And I would think, if anything's, the only way it is going to happen is that the young people start thinking for themselves and then realize, hey, this is wrong, and start, when they do find themselves being able to make a difference, start making a difference. And maybe that's what we're seeing with this Arab Spring and all that kind of stuff, that they're starting to see and realizing they do have power and they can make changes in their countries. And maybe they will. It's hard to say what could come out of it. I think it's still too early, but maybe we will see something.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
That would be nice.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and finish up on the news.
Prepare to be blown away. Jesus Christ never actually existed. It was all made up. Or so says one top U.S. Bible scholar. Hey everyone, I'm Melissa Caverly. This is Newsbreaker. Joseph Atwill made his discovery while studying The War of the Jews, written by Josephus over 2,000 years ago. He says the book contains dozens of parallels between Jesus Christ and Roman Emperor Titus Flavius. He also claims Christianity didn't start as a religion, but the stories were created as propaganda to pacify subjects of the Roman Empire. In an interview with the Daily Mail, he says, quote, "The biography of Jesus is actually constructed tip to stern on prior stories, but especially on the biography of a Roman Caesar." But Bible academic Professor James Crossley says these theories are not taken seriously by academics and compared the theory to a Dan Brown novel. Atwill says he will present some of his findings at a conference in London later in October.
Yes. Ancient confession found. We invented Jesus Christ. Biblical scholars will be appearing at the Covert Messiah Conference in Conway Hall in London on the 19th of October to present this controversial discovery to the British public. Apparently, an American biblical scholar, Joseph Atwill, will be appearing before the British public for the first time in London on the 19th of October to present a controversial new discovery. Ancient confessions recently uncovered now prove, according to Atwill, that the New Testament was written by first-century Roman aristocrats and that they fabricated the entire story of Jesus Christ. And, okay, my comments. Bullshit. When I started looking at this, I thought, this is kind of cool. This would be cool for my show for, doing the conspiracy. Was Jesus make-believe, or was he made out of whole cloth? Just a figment of some Roman's imagination. And because I was kind of looking at this, now this actually comes from a website called PR Web. Apparently, for a few dollars, you can post a press release on whatever you're doing or whatever you want to do. So I started looking up Mr. Atwill. This alleged scholar apparently isn't. He wrote a book, and then he added a couple chapters. He bought the rights back from the publisher, added 2 more chapters, apparently claiming that the Flavians, this would be the period after Caesar, I believe, probably like the mid 100 AD, between 77 AD and 100 AD, made up the story of Jesus. Now, I went to look up what may have given him this evidence. I guess he's keeping it secret until this press release, which will be, from recording today's?
Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday, about 3 days from when we're recording this. So what this evidence is, I have no idea. I found the books, Caesar's Messiah. So that also was a red flag for me because Caesar was about 150 years before this period that he says that this was written. So he's definitely working some weird angle on this thing, and I don't know what's happening here as far as this evidence. He hasn't said anything about I can't find anything about this evidence other than he says he's found some writings claiming that we forged the New Testament.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Atwill, he's been involved in a lot of questionable activities in the past. People like Richard Carrier calls him a crank. Robert Price criticizes him up one side and down the other. And this guy really operates more like a conspiracy theorist than anything else. He claims that he has secret knowledge that he'll reveal to people who pay him to attend his lecture. That's not how science works, dumb shit.
Right.
You don't go out there and charge people to hear your wonderful revelation. That's religion. That's not science. That's conspiracy theory.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, that was some of the red flags I have used. First of all, this is science through press release. That's a sure sign that you've got issues with the science. Definitely. I mean, I've noted trying to look this guy up. I mean, he's only got one book. I mean, technically he's just wrote one book, this, Caesar's Messiah. And again, he's accrediting Caesar for this on the cover. Now, when you start looking into it a little bit, you find out that, well, it's the later, I forget which, emperors. This is past Claudius, past Nero, all those, and apparently claiming that these aristocrats had, fabricated this, Jesus myth because, to pacify the Jews. Because they were dealing with the Sicarii in Israel, they thought by creating this alter entity that Jews would follow Jesus as opposed to the crazies, and nothing in this makes any sense. And so I'm kind of curious what's going to come out on the Saturday.
Oh, nothing, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure it's something like maybe some tablet or something's been written down, but it's, people want to know, well, is it authentic? He's gonna go through, well, no, or he won't let it go to any scientist to authenticate the thing. So it's gonna be something like the James Ossuary, Simca Jacobi or whatever, the guy that does the Naked Archaeologist on History Channel, goes into the biblical stuff. That guy kind of promotes some of these religious things, and like the James Ossuary may have been a forgery, or may have been real, but somebody defaced it by putting James, son of Jesus, on the thing. That type of stuff. But he's probably going to have some piece of evidence that he won't let anyone look at or won't let anyone test to see if it's accurate. What else could he do?
Well, it depends. It depends on if he either has something new, because we don't really know anything at this point. Either he has some kind of new writing that he discovered on his own, or somebody sold to him or whatever, or more likely he just has old writings that everybody knows about that he's come up with a brand new interpretation of.
I was going to say, that's classic. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Zechariah Sitchin.
Yep.
This guy, he made up his own version of Sumerian and comes up with this, a chunk of Jupiter ejects itself, wipes out life on Mars, deposits that life on Earth, and settles into orbit being Venus. Okay. And he gets that from some of the Sumerian writing, and people that do know Sumerian says nothing like that in it. It's like, but this guy self-taught himself Sumerian. I mean, God bless him if he can, I have a rough time with English, let alone trying to, come up with an ancient dead language, but, it's probably along that same line. He's going to have some parchment or whatever, and he's going to either, have a false, translation. It could be in Hebrew. I mean, that's been a language that's been there's, what's that guy, Maxwell Jordan likes to screw with language a lot. He misquotes a lot of things about Egyptian. Wish I could be a little bit more definitive on this, but I know what the Egyptian gods. I mean, the names we know them, like Horus and Osiris and all that, are actually Greek translations or Greek creations. Yeah, Greek versions of the Egyptian. So using, like a Osiris, and Jordan Maxwell likes to use the Osiris as the, he does this thing about, Sirius, the star in, Canis Major. I think, my astronomy's kind of rusty, but, Sirius is a major star, a large magnitude star that seems to play into some legends. So he thinks that Osiris is a play on Sirius, and this is why the Egyptians worship certain way. Well, I forget what Osiris was in Egyptian, and it's something like Hapatat or something, whatever, it's totally different. But he uses the Greek translation from Egyptian to create his Egyptian myth, and it's crap like that, and I bet you that may be very much what we're going to see too. I mean, taking bets. I bet you it's going to be a chunk of parchment with some scribblings on it, maybe ancient Hebrew, because that seems to be a language people like to mess up too. it's going to be parchment. He's going to have a screwed up translation, but he's not going to let anybody look at it or try to authenticate it. What other fun stuff he could be doing too? They do all sorts of little mind games and stuff like that. So
yeah, well, you got to remember that Atwill, he's actually a well-known anti-Christian activist, and here again we are being skeptical of all claims, including the claims of atheists.
yes.
This guy has a chip on his shoulder. He goes out specifically trying to prove Christianity wrong. And I'm sorry, that's just not how credible science works. I'm going to wait until there's actual scholarship by legitimate and respected scholars who actually know how to act like scientists before I bother paying any serious attention to any of this nonsense.
I mean, if Atwill has real evidence, real data.
If he had real evidence, he would present it in a scientific manner instead of trying to make a buck off of it.
Exactly. And that's what I was going for. He would have put it in a paper. He would have submitted it to, a journal. He would have everything, authenticated. He would have, all this stuff. But no, you just don't pull shit out of the air. Cause apparently he seems to, what was it? Cause I was just reading actually from an apologist, site where, somehow, I forget, I think it was Mark, that the Gospel of Mark matches up with something that the Flavians had wrote. And so that's part of his evidence that the Gospel of Mark is Roman. So,
I don't know.
It's like, it's the skeptic in me went off on the story. It definitely screamed bullshit, and, so I wanted to present this to realize, this guy apparently is fairly anti-Christian, and, it'd be nice if what he was saying was true, but he went around it the wrong way, so we have no idea if we can believe this guy or not.
Yeah, I have to say that based on his past, the past experience with this guy, I don't believe what he says. I just don't. Because he's gone about it entirely the wrong way. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he really has this evidence. And if he does, so be it. Let's see it. Let's have it studied scientifically and objectively. Let's have it get into the peer-reviewed journals. Let's have the industry, so to speak, take a look at it and find out if it's actually valid. And then we're fine. But until he's willing to do that without having his hand out for a ticket price, I got no interest in this guy. I just don't.
Right. Oh, same here. I might do a whole show on this because it is an interesting concept, but like I said, and like we've gone through a lot of this is just, you don't know if it's true or not. You can't tell. This guy's made up stories and, where he gets some of this stuff. We don't know. Now he's got some new evidence.
Present
it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if his thing on Saturday, he makes everybody who goes in there sign a non-disclosure agreement. I
wouldn't put it past people like that. Of course,
Yeah.
if anyone is listening and going to it, get us some bootleg video.
Yeah, I'm sure he won't allow that. But, It's the same kind of crap that we see from Alex Jones and all the rest of the conspiracy nuts. Same shit, different guy.
Yes.
No difference.
No different.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to a segment of You Believe What?
You believe what?
No. Oh, no.
Hey kids, there's this great new idea going around in Christian apologetic circles, only it's not so great and it's not so new. It's the same old crap they've always pulled, but they're just not being quiet about it anymore. Presuppositional apologetics has been around for nearly 100 years now, but it's getting pulled out of the bag of tricks more and more often. It asserts that without believing in God, that no possible debate can be had because God is required to even discuss the question of whether God exists. Confused? Get used to it. This is our discussion on the utter stupidity of presuppositional apologetics. I hate
And I'll tell you
this.
what, when I started reading about this, I'm confused. So I'm going to let you take the lead on this guy, okay? If you don't mind.
Oh, no problem. The reason I'm bringing this up, it's been out there for a long time, but last week's Atheist Experience had a caller who was a presuppositionalist, and Matt Delhoney just hung up on his ass. Because it's just it's absurd. And he had a long debate with Matt Slick, who's one of the foremost pushers of this nonsense. And Matt Slick basically got his ass ripped, and he never admits to it. Essentially what presuppositional apologetics is, they assert that in order to even reason around the question of God, you have to already believe that God exists, because without God, logic can't exist. So you cannot use logic unless you believe in God, or unless you believe that God is real. It's basically saying, I win because I win. They are presupposing victory and refusing to acknowledge even the possibility of defeat. They're saying, well, I'm assuming the victory conditions have already been met, and I won't allow anybody to change my mind. And this is their entire thing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I started listening to that one with Slick, and I mean, I'll be brutally honest. So much stuff was going over the top of my head, but I was like, when I was listening to it, it's like, well, wait a minute. It was like this, if I'm remembering it right, they were arguing, it was that part where they were talking about, like if a rock existed in a universe where there was no one who to think about it, or it would still be a rock. And this guy was arguing no, because for it to be a rock, you have to have someone think that it's a rock. I'm listening to the two arguments. Listening to it, and it's like, well, it seems to make sense to me that if you have a universe where there's no life, just rock, you still got a rock. You don't need someone to think, what was he using? He was using a different term. But it was, the atheist guy, he was making more sense than the other guy, because he was arguing against it, but not, he was agreeing with it, but he was arguing against it. It was really weird. And I think that might have been what was screwing me up on that, where it was, I'm trying to remember exactly, because you would say, in this universe, we can understand rock, but if there's no one there, it's like, if a tree falls in the wood and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? I mean, I would think the answer would be it would make a sound. It's just there was nothing there to hear it. That type of argument, or that kind of logic. Am I on the right track here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem is this entire argument is based around what I continually call philosophical masturbation. It doesn't actually mean anything. And I know there's an awful lot of philosophers out there who are going to disagree with me, but I think the vast majority of modern philosophy is just a bunch of whacking off. Because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's to make these people think like they're actually making sense and not talking out of their ass. Obviously, if a rock exists, whether there's somebody there to see it or not. And I will have all kinds of people who will say, they'll pull that whole stupid Matrix argument. Well, how do you know that anything is really real? Well, okay, cool. I say I've got a rock here in my hand. You want me to prove it's real? I'll come over to you and I'll beat you over the head with it until you admit it's real. Because you're either going to admit that it's actually real, or you're going to lose consciousness. Take your pick.
Yeah. Yeah, because I like to think, I live in a real world. I've got my microphone here, my computer, got a table, I've got my soda sitting here. Everything seems real to me. And I think I was listening to, I think it was the one with Massimo Pigliucci, Rational Thinking? What's that? I used to listen to his podcast, and he had a guy on there talking about that, the Matrix thing, where everything's a construct in your head. And, it kind of got me thinking, but you know what? There might be something to that, but, your brain has to construct something, and if I reach out and grab this mic stand, I'm grabbing something. My brain constructed something that it saw out there, and I can go out and grab the mic stand. If it was make-believe, like if it was like a Matrix where it was all, would I be able to reach out and grab a mic stand? In the movie, yeah, but, in this context, is that really true? Or am I looking at a tree, but it looks like a mic stand to me and I grab it? Am I grabbing a tree or am I grabbing a mic stand? I don't know. But to me, I know this, in this real world, in the world I'm holding a mic stand right now.
Yeah, I mean,
and you know, so I'm trying to think how does this matrix thing supposed to really work? Because if I'm reaching out to this mic stand and it's a cobra, in reality, I'm dead. You know, if that thing bites me, you know, so there's got to be something where there's more to it than just this computer generated reality, you know.
Yeah, but you got to remember that most of these solipsistic idiots, they're really asserting that there is no physical world. There is no reality. You never touch anything. Everything is just an illusion in your mind. Your mind is telling you that you're touching something, but you're really not, because there's nothing to touch, because nothing exists except you in a vat or whatever, your brain in a vat, which is really, really ridiculous, and it's really pretty easy to disprove. If you really sit down and think about it, we can talk to other people. Now, if you're going to assert that these other people are just illusions that are generated in your head, well then, they should all give you the same answers to questions that you ask. So if you ask, 10 people, what color is this? All 10 people should tell you red, because the illusion in your head is red. Well, what happens if you start interviewing people who are colorblind and they start saying it's gray? Why would your brain start giving you wrong answers? Where's the logic in that? And that's, you start bringing that crap up and they just they stop talking to you. Because,
right.
You blow their claims out of the water and then they just start, nah. And that's exactly the same thing that presuppositionalists do if you actually try this. Because they'll come and they'll argue that it requires God to even talk about the existence of God. And I will sit down and I'll say, well, no, I don't believe that. I believe in Lug, the god of the leprechauns. And I think that it requires belief in Lug in order to discuss anything about logic or reason. And they'll sit there and their mouth will just hang open for a few minutes and they'll walk away. Because they got nothing to beat that. All they're doing is making a blind assertion with no evidence. And as soon as you can make another blind assertion with no evidence that contradicts them, they got nothing. They got nothing at all.
Yeah. Yeah, because I tried to read up on this, and the idea that you need a God to create logic, all this stuff. It's just, I can't, I mean, it almost sounds like that, that kind of that matrix thing where they're trying to use this God to create this, that he created, supposedly created everything. So, we're working in this God world. So he'll set up rules, logical rules that we can follow. But, it's like, but if God is like that perfect, why do we have, that paradox? I mean, can God create a rock so big that he himself can't hold? Or, you would think that he would fix that problem. So we don't have to doubt that God exists. It's like, there just seems to be this, trying to pin everything to God. That's just doesn't leave you any room. I mean, any room to think.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, exactly.
They don't think,
Right.
Yeah, but if you look, and you have to look at this historically, if you actually look at the way that the apologetics arguments have evolved over time, you started off way back in the past where gods walked with man and everybody saw God and, there were miracles all over the place and there was no question that there was God. Don't tell that to the people who are following Moses around, who walks up the damn mountain and everybody goes, well, all those miracles we've been seeing, fuck that, we're going to build our own God. They didn't seem to pay much attention to that. But as time has gone on and science has evolved, religion has started to shove gods into smaller and smaller and smaller gaps. And every time science fills a gap, they move him and shove him into a smaller one. And they've finally gotten to the point where they've just had to define God in such a way that there's no way in hell you can find God. God is defined as unfindable. God is undetectable by any and all means, and you just have to have this blind faith that God exists because there's no way otherwise to come to know that God exists. And that's the point that we're at right now, where these guys are just asserting that God exists. That's their argument. Their argument for God existing is God exists. And that's the whole basis behind presuppositional apologetics. But you can do that with anything.
Yeah. Well, a funny thing is that's what I was kind of thinking along that that kind of popped in my head when I started thinking. I mean, because I looked it up on Wikipedia and I wanted to look at the other apologetics. I'm not really that well versed in all that. I mean, after watching that video, I was kind of blown. There was a lot of terminology that I wasn't used to. So I started reading into it more and more, and I go, well, it sounds like, what's happened is, that God has been, science is pushing out the boundaries into that used to be kind of a small little chunk, and everyone can accept, the little bit, but as we move more and more, as we learned more, as the body of science and the body of knowledge grew, all of a sudden now God's being pushed into these outer rings, and I think we're probably on the verge of pushing it even further. Something's got to give, or at least as far as the religious, those are, because, I mean, I kind of in my mind, after some YouTube videos, there's these, you get these, their proof of God existing is because we have the Bible. This empty-headed girl saying, well, the proof of God is we've got this Bible. And I'm like, it's a book written by humans, inspired by something, maybe God, maybe, smoking material, but it's a book, it's written by humans, because the book is so perfect. It has to be God's word. So, and
it's like, have you read this thing? Seriously?
Apparently, I'm going to say apparently not, because it's just a wonderful book. It has all the answers are here. I'm like, I'm just, it's almost like you have to like ignore everything that's going on around you to keep God alive, So it's like, keeping your religion alive, keeping your God alive. But as he's being pushed further and further away, I always kind of see this backlash. People are fighting against it, so they got to say, well, none of the science stuff, none of this philosophy, none of the anything that happens on this planet has to have God involved, or it has some part in this. And that's what I gathered from this subject, is that they need something to say, well, God is responsible for everything, and it's self-evident. It's God has, does everything. You just don't question it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really is pretty stupid when you look at it. I mean, I wrote a post a long, long time ago. One of the major people who pushed this thing is Cy 10 Bruggencate, and he's got a website where he had a test. And I don't know if it's still up, because this was a couple of years ago, but he had this test where he asked these questions, where it was, do you believe this? Do you believe that? Do you believe this? And you could only go on in this test if you answered yes. If you answered no, it just kept looping you around until you got to this, you answered yes, or you gave up. And by answering yes and going through this entire set of like 7 questions, he says, therefore you've just proven God. Well, you can't disagree with the guy. He removes the ability to disagree. If you say, I don't know, he keeps looping you back around until you give up in frustration. If you say, I don't care, he sends you over to the Disney site because apparently you don't want to talk to him. The whole thing is just absurd. It's all based on a logical fallacy. It's begging the question. It assumes that the proposed solution is proven correct by assuming that the proposed solution is correct. And these people take this shit seriously. But you can't do that in anything. Yeah, you can't do that with anything else. You could do this with anything. You can prove the existence of aliens by assuming the existence of aliens. You can prove any conspiracy theory ever come up with by assuming that the conspiracy theory is correct. That's what these people are doing. And these people are so stupid they don't understand what they're doing, or they don't care. Mostly it's they don't care.
I mean, they must care enough to put themselves in their position, that they're gonna fight over, this God watching that argument and arguing about, logic. And I think it had to do with, without God, you can't have logic. And it's like, then the guy was going like, no, I mean, if I did this, the typical, if then else type thing, if I have this and, whatever I think that was it, or whatever, A plus B equals A and C, whatever the standard logical formulas, I guess. And the guy was like arguing against it. I'm like, that's when I kind of realized, and I'd like to watch that one a little bit more. Maybe I can understand it a little better. But watching, it was like there was that brick wall, and he couldn't get past it. That, God creates logic. God had the basic for logic, and it's like, no. I mean, it was like, like for the Justin Vacula, some of the arguments there were, I'm messing up here. That question he kept asking.
Where Justin was asking about slavery?
Not slavery. The preacher that didn't want to, when Justin asked the question, the preacher wouldn't answer it. Question.
That was slavery, where he kept going, well, I don't want to talk about that. That's not part of this discussion.
No, there was another thing, and I think, I'm trying to remember, shoot. I remember something about, and it's kind of along this lines where, cause it was one of those, it was kind of like a logic, it sounded to me like a logic question, if, I don't know if it was self-evidence, cause, I mean, Justin, refuted it, but the preacher wouldn't, comment, and it wasn't it wasn't the slavery thing. And I even asked him when we interviewed him. I mean, I would like to have the preacher have, answered that question that you put to him about that. And he was saying it wasn't that important, but it was something it would have been nice to have heard about. But, now that I'm derailed myself,
the problem with all these people is they're so desperate to maintain their beliefs that they're willing to just make up anything. The whole thing behind this is they're finally out of arguments. They have nothing left to say. And so they have to just make something up and just say, well, I'm going to define reality as being this way, and therefore I'm going to demand everybody plays by my definition of reality, and anybody who refuses to play with my definition of reality, I'm going to pick up my ball and go home.
Yeah. I know my ma's like this, she went to a Catholic college. She was a librarian, and, so she's one of these, she doesn't take the Bible literally. She's like, God just set things in motion, and then it just ran on its own type of, that type of, belief, which is kind of, you still got God in the equation, kind of sitting there off to the side, and everything else is now naturally, God creates evolution to, explain species, that type of belief. But now that even that has gone away. Now I'm not talking about mom, but these people, that they realize, we need to say that all the, it's maybe not even necessarily anything physical. I mean, we're talking about just a general philosophy, or, cause they always like to say that morality is, you need God to have morality, and we've argued against that. I know that, but, it's like this, we're backing them into a corner, and they just need to keep that, they need to keep God in there. So, in this case, it sounds like they pulled it so far back that you got God, and he is responsible for everything. He may not even exist, but he's there, type of, that's the impression I get. And I think it's more or less just, it's just that last gasp. I'm kind of reminded of a cartoon. It was in a game magazine from, back in the 80s. And it was a cartoon about, there was this god that was basically trying to enslave these people, and ended up killing, and there was like one left, and this guy kills it, and the god says that now that no one believes in me, the god ceases to exist. Keeping God in our mind, it keeps him alive. Once that goes away, God dies. I think they're trying to keep God alive, that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem, I think, ultimately is these are people who have looked at all of the other apologetic arguments. All the arguments have been shredded completely. And these people have finally gotten to the end of their rope, and they've said, I'm going to pull out this one argument that cannot be defeated, because they've defined it in such a way that you cannot defeat it. they've defined their way to victory. They've defined God into existence by saying that that existence can't exist without God. And therefore, any question that gets rid of God, they can't imagine, because that means that existence doesn't exist. These people are just, I want to say they're dumb and deluded, but there's a certain, I don't want to say logic, but there's a certain beauty to the knots that they've tied themselves into.
Yeah. This did take quite a bit of thought. And for me, I know God, there's no God and all that kind of stuff, but hanging on to that last bit, I'm thinking back to childhood days. It's like, God, I wish I still had that. I wish back in the 80s, I was no cares in the world, late 70s, early 80s. No cares in the world. I had a car, I had a girlfriend, some of the games, all this fun stuff. I get through college, and then next thing you know, I got responsibilities. We want to hold on to those, and I guess for a lot of people, God, is it's like a childhood. I guess in a way, yeah. It kind of makes sense that you don't have to think. You do. You are. You can be. You don't have to think. All you got to do is I go into church, 3 Hail Marys, and I'm back out on the street.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah. You're exactly right. That's really what a lot of this is these people don't understand how to think about the world without an imaginary friend in the sky, and therefore everything they do depends on having that imaginary friend. Well, that's a delusion. That's not reality.
Right. And yeah, they're just hanging on to it it's like hanging on to a childhood. We're hanging on, I know it's a tragedy, but a loved one that passes away. And the people that hang on to that, that there's something special about that. And I imagine if when people like that all of a sudden come to the realization there's no God, it's probably almost like losing a loved one, probably the same stresses, the same anxieties that go along with it. And I wish it wasn't that bad. But if your life is so ingrained with that, I could see people grasping for whatever straw they can to keep God alive.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are just not interested in living in the real world. Reality may not be nice. It may not be fun. It may not be kind, but it's really all we've got.
Yeah. Hey, I love my video games, Battlefield 3, SimCity, the new SimCity I've been playing quite a bit. It's an escape from reality. I go into these worlds and, you can do cool things. You can shoot bad guys, or you build cities, you do whatever. But eventually you got to come out of those, and these games aren't cheap. I need a job to pay for it. So you got to balance that, the fake with reality and keep it in perspective, And if you can't, and if it becomes a crutch, then I think, you got people these are people who are in trouble, just like people on drugs, that the drug is the crutch that they're on, and getting off of that, getting away from, my little brother plays 5-6 hours a night games, and, I wonder what would happen if, the whole power grid went away, and, he couldn't play his video games. He might actually go outside and get some sun on his face or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I kind of see sometimes that God is an escape from reality, that, God is making everything all right. So these people are going to hang on to it, and they're going to create more and more ways of holding on. Let go, people. Live your life. I've heard of this one guy who had, all his life he was into juicing. Everything he ate was juiced, because it was supposed to prevent cancer and all that, prevent heart disease, prevent cancer. And he walks in, my mom, she works at the library, and she talks to this guy, and this guy came in, and he was kind of down, and my mom asked what was wrong. He says, well, I just found I had cancer. And it wasn't so much the cancer, it's just all this time he'd been juicing to prevent cancer. And he realizes, I could have lived. I could have enjoyed a steak. I could have enjoyed real food, I was doing this to prevent cancer, to prevent the disease, and I ended up getting it anyhow. It's like I missed out. That's I think what's going on here. They're holding on to God because they think it's going to definitely. They believe that there's a heaven and hell. If they believe in God and put faith in Jesus, they go to heaven. It's gonna suck when you find out that it ain't real. Of course, they'll never know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they want to live in the fantasy And so they're going to basically waste their entire lives on their knees in front of this imaginary friend in the sky that isn't even there. They're going to throw away tons of money and time sitting in churches, listening to morons in a pulpit. And at the end, they don't actually get anything out of it because they've wasted their life and they die and that's it. These people have problems and, I agree with you. They have to cling to this stuff and they have to make things up just to make it seem a little bit realistic or a little bit worthwhile.
Yeah.
And that's just sad.
It's very sad. Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to close up for the week.
Let's close up for the week.
All right. Well, that's it in a nutshell. 90-ish minutes of conservative atheist goodness wrapped up in a bow. We'll be back again in another week with some more nuggets of joy. Don't forget, we're available online pretty much everywhere on Facebook, Google+, Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Twitter, and of course, our very own website where you can find show notes galore for each and every show. We'll see you again in another 7 short days. Take care.
Good night, everyone.
You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report podcast with your hosts, Cephas and Mike. You can follow us on Twitter respectively at Bitchspot1 or at JDRipper1962. Please visit our website at report.jdragononline.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The B-Spot Report. We're also on Google+, iTunes, and YouTube. Those links are on our website. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us via email at report@jdragononline.com. Comments, ideas, and suggestions are always welcome. We'll be back next week with another fun and fact-filled episode. Please tune in again.